Prince, Picasso, Bob Marley, right? That'd be good company. However, each of them famously made a big financial mistake that I want you to avoid. I've got that and more coming up. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm the host of the Wise Money Show. I'm also one of the certified financial planners right here at Korhorn Financial Group. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and smash that thumbs up button. So I'm a child of the 80s, means I was born in the 80s, but really I was in adolescence, sort of figuring my life out in the 90s. And so, yeah, music-wise, Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit, right? And Pearl Jam and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that was my childhood. And so, yeah, one of the biggest songs of all of the 90s came out in 95. I remember it vividly. I can still sort of put myself mentally back in that era and that situation. And it was from a movie, Dangerous Minds. That's right. The rapper Coolio's hit, huge hit, Gangsta's Paradise. I remember that. So what's the reference? All right. So sadly, the rapper Coolio, at age 59, passed away last year, 2022, and he joins a famous list of famous people who died with a financial mistake. And I'm not talking about bankruptcy. Folks that actually come into sudden money, oftentimes they don't have the behavior to manage it well, and so you find a lot of them, especially musical artists, that one-hit wonder type things where the money doesn't last. And that's not the financial mistake I'm talking about, although we can certainly glean a lot from that. I'm actually talking about passing away without a will. And certainly at 59, you would assume that Coolio had, I don't know the circumstances. I don't believe he had an illness. So I would assume that his passing was unexpected and caught him and the entire family by surprise, of course. And financially, there could be many excuses to say, well, yeah, you didn't have that figured out. But yet, if any of us would have had the notoriety or the success, the fame that Coolio or some of these others would have had, hopefully that would have been enough encouragement to say, well, you've got to at least get a will in place, some financial structure in place such that if you pass away suddenly, that there's a smooth transition of your assets directly to the people that you want to inherit them. Prince, I would argue, maybe the most famous individual to pass away without a will, but it's for famous folks, they didn't think Michael Jackson had a will at first. They later found it. Jimi Hendrix is on that list. Believe it or not, Abraham Lincoln. And I don't know, guys, that would obviously be a couple hundred years of history there, but Abraham Lincoln, apparently a lawyer himself, obviously passed away suddenly and tragically, didn't have a will in place. So if we all know, I would certainly assume it's not a surprise. These famous individuals, as well as all of us, we've all heard that you need to have a will. So why is this famously one of the great financial regrets that so many of us have? It's hard to talk about. It's emotionally challenging to talk about you passing away. And so part of it feels like, well, I'm invincible, or that won't happen for a long time. And when it does, I'll have plenty of forewarning and sort of will be able to reconcile to, yep, this is it. So it's not going to happen suddenly. It won't happen. I'll have plenty of time. And then there's also just the emotions of it. It's just hard to grapple with the fact that we are all finite on this earth. And so dealing with that, it can be challenging. I know, I have to be unemotional about this because we serve folks and need to help them work through challenging issues like this and illness and what happens if you get sick or hurt or injured or a house fire. And we've got to, as a financial planner, you've got to talk through some of these very emotional things and do so from a logical and unemotional stance. And so, my poor wife, when we got married, normally that maybe is the first sort of idea. Yeah, I probably need to get some structure in place, but really not until you have kids is it really, really, really important. And so we had just had our first child, and it was okay. We need to get some structure in place, and she didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to talk about it. And so in addition to all of the other marital issues that people are all dealing with and juggling, do you really want to cause that and force that? And so we were doing a road trip. I can't remember where we were going, a couple hours, and it was just the two of us in the car. And I took that opportunity and said, she can't go anywhere. And, let's talk this out. So I think that's why it's so hard is there's it's never going to happen to me, or it's not going to happen for a long time. And also, it's just emotionally challenging to think about that stuff. But obviously, those same emotions are the ones that would say, well, if something were to happen, I'd want it to be clear that I'd want my money to go, or my assets to go to my kids, or I'd want it to go to my family member. I'd want it to go this way, right? Those same emotions where you'd say, gosh, it's hard to talk about, are the exact same ones that would say, yeah, but I don't want to make a mess for these people that I love and care about. I want these assets to go to them. Instead, Coolio's situation, now the courts need to figure out, does the money go to his kids? Does it go somewhere else? How much goes to each kid, right? The courts need to figure that out instead of him proactively listing out, here's how I'd want the assets to be dispersed. So that leads to the next question. What happens if you do pass away without a will? Well, technically, in kind of legal terms, that's dying intestate. Intestate's a fancy term that means without a will. And basically, you go through the court systems, and the courts determine here's how your assets should be split. And they look up and down the line of your family and relatives and come to a determination themselves as to how your assets would be split. And certain courts and states have, okay, this is the normal process of things, but it's out of your control. It might not align with what your actual wishes were. And so everyone's got a will per se. Everyone's got some sort of layout of where their assets would go if something happens to them. The question is, are you the one deciding that, or is someone else or the states deciding that on your behalf because you never listed it out? I think we all would want a long life and never have to worry about this, right? But that's not guaranteed. And so I think we'd all, given that choice of, well, do you want to decide exactly where the assets go, or do you want to leave it up to the state and hope that they get it right? I think you'd want to decide. And a will is that process of you declaring, here's who I would want to get what. And it doesn't mean you've got to go line by line and whatever. You could just say, take all of my assets and distribute it a third to each of my kids, or give 10 grand to this person, and the rest goes here. I mean, you've got and there's lots of ways you can divvy it up, and that it creates challenges in and of itself. Some of it really good, some of it not so good. But it doesn't need to be so granular where this is this overwhelming burden. You can make it pretty simple, but a will is you declaring up front how it's going to go. As life evolves and you want to change that, you can easily change it. It's no problem. Very easy to do. But you deciding it and getting that documented in a will ensures that your heirs are taken care of, and they don't have to scramble and have it go through the courts to determine, well, how would the courts decide where the assets should go? And then finally, is a will the end-all be-all for estate plans? No, it's not. No, it's not. You actually should have more structure than just a will. And although a will's the primary purpose is, yes, it lists a guardian for any minor children, but the big purpose of the will is to direct who gets what assets. Your specific bequests is what they call it. But which assets will actually flow through the will? Which ones do you not want to flow through the will? We've done lots of conversations about this and done some content on it as well, so make sure you check that out. But IRAs, life insurance, like retirement plans, anything that has a named beneficiary is not going to go through the will. Who you list as the beneficiary will supersede whatever is listed in the will. So on your 401k, if you say, I want my 401k to go to my spouse, but when you draw up your will, you say you're in an argument with your spouse, and you say no, or when you draw up your will, by that time you've gotten a divorce, and you say I want all my assets to go to my kids, not the spouse. But if the spouse or ex-spouse is still listed as beneficiary on your 401k, they're the ones that are going to get the money. Right? So listing a beneficiary on life insurance, 401k, investment accounts, those sorts of things will supersede whatever is listed in the will. And you might say, well, that's not fair, but anything that has a named beneficiary transfers that way, avoids probate, avoids the entire will process and cost that goes along with it. So you need to be aware of that. You need to leverage that. So part of the right estate plan is going through all of your assets, making sure there's the right ownership, making sure you've got the right beneficiaries listed, and trying to avoid the will as much as possible because you want to avoid probate. Then whichever assets will be transitioned by going through the will, you want to have that structure in place, listing out exactly who would receive what. All of this is part of your estate planning area of the 6 areas of your financial life. The estate planning is the 6th, as well as lots of others that you should be working on with your certified financial planner who's doing comprehensive financial planning. So if you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com, that's Korhorn with K. WiseMoneyShow.com, you can find us there as well, or send us an email, info@Korhorn.com. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.